updates and enlightened hearts. I know you may be missing our music. Our host, Michelle White, Turner White, is not here with us, and so we just send a big shout out to her, letting her know that we miss her, and we look forward to being back again with her on our next Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts. And I just wanted to, before I got into who our guests are today, we're really excited about it. I wanted to share some upcoming events, well, at least one upcoming event. And if Michelle is able to listen in, she's more than happy to call in for anything that she would like to share. But on September the 7th, my nonprofit organization, which would be the third annual year, we do a Women Empowering Girls Tea Party. This is for the International Day of the Girl, which happens on October the 11th. So we give a big tea party on September, normally during September, and this is for us to raise funds for we can connect with girls throughout organizations and as well as schools, and various leaders and speakers go into the schools to really speak to the girls on that day. And it's all about inclusivity as well as equality, as and as well as equity. So we focus on those things, diversity as well as diversity. So we focus on those three things, and we go in and speak to our girls. And it's really important now more than ever because many of our girls are experiencing, as well as boys, but my focus, my ministry is towards our girls from 12 to 19. And unfortunately, a lot of them after the pandemic started experiencing depression, anxiety, as well as suicide. So it is so helpful for us as women leaders going into the schools and making a difference. I have designed a program at this time that during the school year I do work with young girls. If you are interested in my organization coming in and working with your girls, please give me a call at 248-648-1733. That's 248-648-1733. And again, it's the Women's Empowering Girls Tea. That's going to be on September the 7th, and it's going to be from 12 to 3 p.m. And we're asking women to come in wearing their exquisite, beautiful hats, and just us having a good time on that day. We will have some speakers. It is going to be at Greater Grace Temple, which is located on West 7 Mile. So we're looking forward to hosting our tea party there. And we're also looking forward to young ladies being a part. I will be posting my event on my website as well as on Facebook, as well as Michelle posting it to hers as well. So be on the lookout, and I look forward to you women joining us with your beautiful hats and us strutting on September the 7th from 12 to 3 p.m. at Greater Grace Temple. All right, so I do have something else I want to read into your hearing. And I thought this was a really important or pivotal quote. That's the way I need to say it. It was pivotal. And the reason why I thought that, because I was listening to a pastor on Sunday, and he was a visitor at the church where I attend. And I had an opportunity to hear him speak, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful sermon. And one of the things that he said, and I want to share it with you, he talked about luggage. And he gave the example of when him and his wife went on a trip. And the luggage, she had so much luggage. But he said he just left that alone. He did not want to get involved about her luggage, and he let the people handle it. And I thought that was really powerful too, allowing the people to handle the luggage and him not saying anything. Because oftentimes men can stick their foot in their mouth, right? And so he said he didn't say anything to her about it, but the people did. And so she had to, because she couldn't bring it on the plane, it was a small plane, so she had to begin to figure out what she needed to leave behind. And she had to go through her luggage. And he said, I think she had like 3 pieces of luggage. And what came out of it for me that he preached about was I put out a quote, and this was inspired by him. It says, embarking on new levels in life requires us to examine our baggage with care. It's time to unpack the unnecessary and repack with intentions. What are you carrying that serves your journey? And what can you leave behind? I thought that was so powerful. What are you carrying that serves your journey? Because we all are on a journey. And what is it that you need to leave behind? And so what are we carrying? So I thought about that. You know, what am I carrying that I really need? Well, I definitely I'm carrying my goals, my achievements, the things that I want to do in life. I'm thinking about my grandbaby. I'm thinking about my legacy. Those are the things that I'm carrying. But then when I start, and my daughter and my husband, those are things that I'm carrying, wondering about, concerning myself about my health. I'm carrying my health, how I'm eating, how I'm sleeping, what's going on with me. And Portia, I want to invite you as well in on this conversation, because I always do the Enlightened Wednesday piece. And then I started thinking about what I need to let go. Well, getting easily upset, worrying about things that I have no control over. I started to think about those things, letting people live their life, my daughter, my husband. You know, everybody got to make their own mistakes. They got to figure out life on their own. You know, make sure on my journey there's prayer, there's spirituality, there's understanding, there's wisdom, carrying all that with me. And the things I need to let go is getting myself involved in things, over-involving myself, overthinking. So all those things I begin to say, this is what I can let go. So if you want to call in today and share what you want to let go or what you're carrying on your journey that's necessary, please give us a call at 313-355-6018. That's 313-355-6018. And so I'm slowing myself down now because I know I can speak fast. And Portia, I just wanted to invite you, if there was anything you felt that you're carrying on your journey that's necessary, and some things that you have let go.
You know what? I have learned to let go of things that are not essential, in my life. So many times, as people, as women, in a position of serving the community and serving our families and serving the people that we love and serving on our jobs and serving our nonprofits, sometimes we just have to be still and let go of some things that are not essential. And what I mean by that is, just because you receive an invitation does not mean you have to attend. Doesn't mean that you have to show up. Doesn't mean that you have to go. And just because you don't get an invitation doesn't mean that you have to carry the load of asking yourself, why was I not on the guest list? So unnecessary things that we don't have to concern ourselves with. I have a little piece of, I should say, in my PowerPoint presentations I often use, and it's basically a person that is bent over on their knees, and it's been stuffed with a gated rocks. And so sometimes when we're carrying those things that are not essential, we feel overloaded. We feel overwhelmed. We feel as if we just can't move forward, that our bodies, our minds, and our spirits just need to shut down. I mean, literally yesterday I had the experience of being very heavy and feeling overwhelmed, and I couldn't sleep very good the night before. And I had to question myself, what did I do that day or the day before which caused me to have a lack of sleep? And so I had a conversation with a very wise woman, and she asked me, what are some things that you've done differently? What are some things that you can let go? And so, when I have opportunity to
Love
assess
that.
those things that are not essential in my life, guess what? I start checking some things off of my list. For me, it's not putting myself in a situation where I always have to cook every single day, right? And so that puts a lot of pressure on me. I'd have to let go of having that pressure. So what I might do is I may go to a I won't say a fast food restaurant, but I may go to a restaurant of my choice. And because I don't eat a lot, I may buy enough food that will last me for 2 days, one day for my lunch, one day for my dinner. Getting rid of individuals in my life who are trying to hold on to me because of what I can give to them, and they're bringing absolutely nothing to the table. And so letting go of those things right there are just some of the things that I just had to address, in my life, and only serve those who desire to be served. And I see D'Angelo has joined too. So from a male perspective, I'm sure he wants to chime in and say some things that some brothers need to let go of.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing it. You were ready for the answer, what a response. I love that. D'Angelo, welcome. I'm not sure if you heard what my quote was. And if you did, you can go on and speak to what on your journey that you have kept, and what are some things that you have let go.
I've, I've learned to let go of my worries. I've learned to let go of my worries and worrying for other folks as well. Um, that helps me out with my health, my spirit, and it helps allow me to focus on those things that are more important.
Okay. I love that. And that's your answer right there, isn't it?
That's my answer with a period.
What a period. Thank you so much, D'Angelo. Why did I know that you as a male, that was the period right there? I love it. I love it. Letting go of worries, right? Letting go of this overthinking, letting go of trying to control every situation, letting go of people who are
That's right.
there for the opportunity and not really there for the experience of you, and you experiencing them. All those things are nugget. And I want you, audience, to think about what is it that you can keep on your journey, and what is it you need to let go. Maybe you need to start journaling these things, because it's so important that we think about it. We think about what we're thinking about. I was speaking to someone today, and they were telling me, well, children don't really think about their thoughts, right? And she said, and we need to get them thinking about what they're thinking about, really chiming in to their thoughts. And I said to her, as a counselor and a coach, I can honestly tell you that neither do adults. Oftentimes, I make them aware of what they're thinking about, and they'll say, I didn't even realize that was even on my mind. Isn't that something? So thinking about what you're thinking about what you're holding on to, think about what you need to let go. So thank you so much for this segment. You are watching Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. So today we have with us Portia Lockett, Dr. Portia Lockett, as well as D'Angelo. Is that Alexander?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I just wanted to make sure. And so welcome, welcome, welcome. And Portia, I'm going to read, you were straight and to the point about your resume. And I do have D'Angelo, so I want to read some of his as well. And then we can get right into why we're here today. So Portia Lockett, Dr. Portia Lockett, grief can be overwhelming and difficult for employers to manage. It is important to remember that each person has their own unique way of expressing and dealing with grief, which means the same approach would not work for everyone. As a leader, it is essential that you are proactive about protecting your staff mental health during this challenging time. Now, let me just say this. This was one that we had Portia on. Portia, this is the one from another time that we had you on. And this one seems very specific. Today, we are talking about your foundation. Azel Benet, is that the way I'm pronouncing the middle name? Portia?
Azel Benet Lockett Foundation.
Thank you. I said Benet. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was pronouncing the middle name right. So Azel Benet Lockett Foundation. And Portia is the founder as well as the CEO of the organization. And today we have D'Angelo Alexander, who is one of the board members. And even though I read from how employers need to be, or employees, their employees and staff need to be proactive. This is really a crusade that you have taken on, Portia, to make sure that everyone is thinking and understanding the impact of grief. Is that right?
Correct.
Yes. And so Portia is going to tell us more about her organization. I believe, Portia, it's been in existence for about almost 3 years.
It's going on 3 years. We'll be celebrating our second actual anniversary in September. We officially started and launched it in September the 7th of 2021. And so we were working towards it, but we're coming up on our second anniversary. So yes.
Okay, very good. So coming up on the second anniversary, and it really came out of Dr. Lockett pain, and she moved her pain to her healing and making sure that she invited others on this journey of healing from their grief in various areas, and she'll speak more about that. And then we have Mr. D'Angelo Alexander. Mr. Alexander is the superintendent of Detroit Service Learning District. Prior to his current role, he was the principal of David L. McKenzie Elementary Middle School, Detroit Public Schools, CD schools serving grades pre-K through 8. During Mr. Alexander's term, McKenzie was one of the district's newest constructed buildings, opening in 2012. At McKenzie, Mr. Alexander served over 1,100 students, which made his school the largest pre-K middle school in the state of Michigan. Considered a turnaround administrator prior to his current appointment, Mr. Alexander was given the charge to help turn a persistently failing school into a high-performing school. Before Mr. Alexander jumped back into the day-to-day operation, he was a field service specialist consultant for Pearson, the largest education service provider in the world. In this role, he proved to be an experienced and effective educator, knowledgeable of standard-based reform and school operations. So welcome, Mr. D'Angelo H. Alexander. So let me just say this. With my girls program, I don't know if you heard me mentioning about it. That is one of the schools that we did this last October the 11th. And you're right, it is really a large school, many students, and it was just a blessing to go into the school. So it's really good to read about how you had such an impact during that time in 2012. Until you moved on. So let me start with you, Portia, Dr. Portia. Please tell us about your foundation, how it was birthed, and if you don't mind, and we're going to talk more about your upcoming event.
Oh, absolutely. So as you stated, this foundation was birthed out of the fact that my son, Azel Benet Lockett Foundation, was actually birthed out of a tragic incident that happened in his life. He was on the streets of Atlanta, December the 15th of 2020. And God specifically spoke to me and said, I'm going to get the glory out of this. And so we had a conversation back and forth. And I'm like, how are you going to get the glory out of this? I just lost my son. But he also reminded me through a conversation with another couple who had lost their son and said, God, there's no respecter of persons. And so as I began to go through my healing journey, my mourning journey, I live intent to God, and he said foundation because it's going to be on purpose to be able to help other people heal, offer them hope, and hold their hearts as they're going through any type of grieving journey. And it's not that someone lost someone. It could be the fact that someone has lost mobility, lost eyesight, been diagnosed with a chronic illness, socialization, lack of social money, business shutting down. So the list goes on and on. There's approximately 40 different ways that one can grieve. So with this being said, reached out to individuals who currently are board members and some advisors on our board to be able to have a conversation about what does this look like and how do we really get out to the general population and let them know that we exist. And so then we came up with the permission series, and we started off with permission to grieve because there's so many individuals who think that they only grieve one way and that there's a certain amount of time that one can grieve. There's only a place that you can grieve for a short period of time, and you have a 2-week period of time in order to grieve. And so we changed that mindset, that perception of being, and then we moved on to permission to heal. What does that look like? How does it affect you? Because everybody's grieving journey is completely different. And so talking to mental health experts, talking to counselors, talking to therapists, talking with ministers, talking with other people who have traveled that same or similar type of a journey to encourage other individuals to join the healing journey. And then we came back with permission to live and laugh because, one of the scriptures says, it talks about the importance, of laughter. Laughter is the best medicine. And so how do we incorporate laughter into our journey of healing? And not that it takes away or it suppresses the grief, but it helps you to be able to move forward in your grieving journey. And then we moved right into permission to love again, because sometimes individuals forget how to love themselves. They forget how to love the individuals who are still here. They forget how to maybe fall out of love, but fall back in love with someone they've been in love with. And so, or even having that self-love period, because sometimes we are so hard on ourselves and grant ourselves grace, nor do we grant others grace as well. So how do we move forward and love again? And so when we talk a little bit further in the conversation, I will go into what Permission Day is all about.
Okay, that's really powerful. And the Permission Day is happening on this 13th of this month,
yes,
correct?
July 13th. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, July 13th. Well, when you mentioned,
yes,
let me just go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I thought you were going to ask me additional questions, but I'll just go ahead and just state the fact that Permission Day is going to take place on Saturday, July the 13th at Wayne County Community College District, Otter Drive and Southfield. But Permission Day, we're going to be adding on 2 more components. Permission to move forward, because sometimes we're stuck, sometimes we are stagnant in that same place, and we can't figure out how to maneuver through this journey. And then how do we celebrate? How do we celebrate life? How do we celebrate the fact that we are in a position to move forward? How do we celebrate the ones that have gone on before us? So this is a transition from grieving to healing to living and laughing to loving again, moving forward and celebrating those 6 components. It's going to be a day packed with a lot of information, resources and tools, entertainment, testimonies, good advice, vendors, and food. And we're just going to come collectively as people who are grieving, or those individuals who are supporters of those who are grieving.
Yes, that is really powerful. And I so admire your work, and you're so right, needing permission. I know when I lost my dad, people treated me, they didn't necessarily say it, like, get over it. And my dad had just really died, or people not wanting to listen anymore. It's really like when you lose someone, at least for me, that was my experience. When I lost my dad, it was like the next day, okay, go and live your life. Your dad died, it's over. And that was very painful because I was very close to my dad. I admired my dad. My dad was gone, and I learned during that time of my grieving through that process, going on that grief journey, that it was okay, for me to grieve. And grief didn't have to look like the way anybody needed it or wanted it to be, because I was doing grieving. This was my personal journey of how I was going to get through my grief with my dad. And giving myself that permission was really powerful. So I love the title of Dr. Portia, even coming up with that, knowing that that was really God inspired, because truly people need permission to grieve, whether it's death, whether it's loss of sight, whether it's loss of a job, whether it's loss of a relationship, whether it's a loss because you used to be physically fit and now you've lost your ability to do things. Whatever it is, giving permission to do that is so important. Do you want to speak a little bit more about that?
Yes, but you know what? If I could just transition for a slight moment, because I think it's really important. You and I are having this conversation, but I think it's really important that we hear from D'Angelo, because
Yeah,
in this journey, we've just had so many people say, I really want my husband, I really want my son, I really want my father, my significant other, my husband to be able to come to this event, but they feel like as if, men don't grieve the same, as that men have been told for so long to put on your big boy's pants and, suck it up, and just get over it. Just keep moving forward. You don't have time for this because you got to provide for your family. You got to run that business. You got to handle this, that, and the other, And so when men don't go through that grieving journey, like they have the ability to be able to, then we have a lot of suppressed grief, or we have grief that has never been addressed. And so with that being said, then we see a lot of young men out in the streets. And I'm sure D'Angelo has worked with a lot of young men through the school system, as well as out on the streets on a regular basis. When this grief is not addressed, then it comes out in a whole different way of living, the impact of wanting to fight. And we experience a lot of gun violence, or, we can't speak it out. We got to fight it out, and so when they're not taught and given those resources and tools and how to be able to accept the fact I'm grieving, let me talk with someone, let me involve someone in my life that can begin to help me. I think that's such an important point there, and which impacts the women, because mothers I can't grieve for my children. I can't grieve for my son. Even though I lost my son, I grieve totally different than his brothers. I grieve completely different than his father and his godparents, and so when we have to collectively come together and take this grieving journey together. And that's what the Permission series is all about. It's not a one size fit all. There are going to be several people that are going to be giving their testimonies of, again, losing their business, relationships, losing their fathers, moving through the journey of being diagnosed with a chronic illness, experiencing cancer. Someone is going to be talking about dealing with alopecia. You're going to be giving your testimony. And so I'm just excited that we are in a position to be able to expand the conversation about grief from a male perspective as well as from a female perspective.
Well, I love that. So let's segue into D'Angelo Alexander. And so, D'Angelo, please pick up from where you believe that would be helpful, because Portia really laid it out for us. You there? D'Angelo, you there?
Are you there?
I can hear you now. It was disconnected for a second. I want to apologize up front. I expected to be in my destination long now. I apologize. I'm on the road. If there was a question, I didn't hear it.
Okay, well, Portia, really laid out, the importance of the male involvement in permission, giving permission to grieve, and why this day is so inclusive of not only women but men as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I segue and said, Portia did a beautiful job of laying it out for us, D'Angelo. Can you just speak to how important it is, for men involvement and men being a part of this event and giving themselves permission to grieve because of the various things that they are experiencing? Young men as well as old men, as well as middle-aged men are and boys are going through.
Most definitely. We need all of our men at the table. We need them to hear, feel. What happens is by us men not participating and not learning how to grieve or participating in grieving in the process, we become hardened, and we become so hard that it's hard to penetrate. And I like to say that we start to trip and not even know that we're tripping or know why we're tripping because we haven't allowed ourselves to go through the grieving process. So our men, all of our boys and men, we need our men definitely to model for our younger men, but we got to be able to be willing and vulnerable enough to go through that process. We got to want it, and no other way than to keep continuing to impress our young men with let them know how valuable they are to us, and that going through the grieving process only helps make you a better person.
Yes, that's beautiful. So, you know what, D'Angelo, can you share with us some of the things that you recognize that men can guide our boys in, and what type of grief men are experiencing?
But you know what? Yes, so immediately when you hear grief, when a man hears grief, they hear cry. And so
Okay.
often, crying has become a negative thing or a weakness thing. But what I've learned through my own personal experience is that crying is a strength. And as a matter of fact, it's a cleansing process for the body. The Lord made us in a way that we can heal ourselves and cleanse ourselves. So by not going through the healing process, we're really blocking what God has created us for. We're blocking all of the elements in our body that allows us to be a whole person. And by the men not going through the grieving process, they're preventing themselves from growing. They're preventing themselves from going through an entire journey, so to say. What happens is our men, by not grieving, a lot of times they isolate themselves and they put themselves on an island. And when they do that, it's hard to communicate with them, to them, and it's hard for them to communicate. As a matter of fact, a lot of times I think that they get scared and fear for looking and feeling weak. And we have to change that mode. We have to let them know that it is okay to go through the natural process of grieving, of mourning, of hurting, of crying. All of that is natural. God gave us these feelings for a purpose. And if we don't allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to go through that process, we aren't allowing ourselves to live a full life.
Oh, wow, that's really powerful. What I heard you say that when men hear grief, they hear crying. And because it's crying, they will not make themselves available to the process because it's been really a man who cries is considered to be weak. And so you often hear, D'Angelo, that men are emotionally unavailable. And so saying that, and I'm not saying all men, of course, I'm just saying what you
In
often
general.
hear.
Yeah, I
Okay.
totally
And
understand.
so if you can just speak a little to the fact that you did say that cleansing process is important, and you talked about how the cry is how one evaluates that cry or determine that cries, how men would do that, and they also pass that on to our young boys. And so, is it a weakness?
It is definitely a strength. Now, I will also be clear and understand that for understanding polarities, too much of anything is a negative. Of course, if you're crying all the time, that's not going to be good. But crying is a healthy process if you're feeling. A lot of times, most of the time nowadays, when I cry, it's from a happy place. It's from a place of joy. So to allow you to understand the cry and when you cry and how you cry is very important. But men hurt too. We hurt, and because we
Yeah.
do hurt, we need to experience and allow ourselves to go through that process of hurt. When we don't allow ourselves to go through that process of hurt, we end up hurting others.
Come on now, right there. We end up hurting others. Hurt people, hurt
Hurt,
people.
that's right. And I really don't believe intentionally men
Did you
hurt
cut off?
others
Oh,
when they're hurt.
you cut out for a minute. We missed what
I'm,
you were saying.
I'm sorry. I said I don't think that most men intentionally will hurt someone, but but unintentionally, and it happens because they're not aware. See, what happens is if you don't allow yourself to go through the grieving process, your mindset is not clear. You're not thinking accordingly. You're not acting accordingly, and therefore you're going to make a lot more mistakes than you normally would, and you're going to step on toes when you really don't know you're stepping on toes because your mind is not clear. We must allow ourselves to go through this process of grieving in order to be there for others. See, we're not made for ourselves. When you don't allow yourself to go through the grieving process, you're actually being selfish. You're
Wow.
being
Okay.
selfish because you can't be there for others if you don't allow yourself to go through that human, God-given right and feelings of grieving, of hurting, of mourning, for whatever. And of course, most of the time we're thinking death, but it's like Portia was saying, there's over 40 something reasons and people can grieve. And all of them deserve the opportunity to go through the process. And that process helps us enjoy the journey. If you don't go through the process, you don't get to enjoy the journey.
Wow, that's really powerful, D'Angelo, because it reminds me of Ecclesiastes, right? Ecclesiastes that says there's a time to grieve, there's a time
That's
to
right.
laugh, there's a
That's
time
right.
to mourn. So there is a
That's
time
right.
for everything.
There's a time.
Yes, that is. So that's powerful. Well, what would you say, and Portia, I'll bring you back into the conversation as well. What would you say to our young girls and to our young boys who are, they're losing, they're moving to various places, they in transit, as you know, D'Angelo and Portia, as you deal with things as well. What can we say to our young people for them to be encouraged, for parents to even at least get the tools or bring them to the event? What would you guys say?
I would just
I'm
say
sorry, you
yes, as
broke up,
long as you
Doc.
feel that, yeah, I'll kind of elaborate in D'Angelo, and you can kind of hear what I'm saying. As long as you feel that the person, the young adult, young teenager, is capable of understanding and comprehending and is really serious about their journey, I would say they would be welcome to. I think the last event we man that was there that was 16-year-old, so happy that he was able to attend. The majority of the individuals are there are 21 plus, but it is serious conversation, and children are grieving at an earlier age than ever before. Children are grieving
Yeah.
the fact that they're thinking about, when I go to school, am I going to be safe? When we were in school, we didn't have to worry about that. That wasn't even a thought about going to school and not being safe, because school, as well as our homes, as well as our churches, were safe havens. Now it's completely different. So we need to have conversations with our children about the fact that these things, are happening, within our country and surrounding areas. When you think about what's going on over in going back and forth between Israel and Pakistan and the other some of the other third world countries, it's waking. We wake up in the morning and assume that we're going to wake up and we're going to be safe. But how about going to bed and thinking about, am I going to wake up tomorrow and somebody in my inner circle that's laying next to me may be dead because of a bomb? Am I going to wake up thinking that a bomb is going to be
That's
going over my
it.
head? Well, you think about that, and it's true talk. So being able to have that dialogue with our children and letting them know that if something is going on in your life, it's okay to say no. It's okay to let somebody know. If someone says something to you that is out of order, tell someone that you trust, even if it's the person that's living in your household, because nowadays we have so many people who are not in our blood families living in homes together. And unfortunately, sometimes we blood relatives living in our households that are touching and feeling and doing things that are not of God to our young
That's
children. And
right.
they're being threatened that
That's right.
if you fail, then I'm going to kill your mother, I'm going to hurt your
That's
father, I'm going to
right.
do this to your sister, so forth and so on. So our children are living. So we need to be able to have these conversations because they should not have to be grieving going through life. They're expected to sit in school and learn. But at the same time, 2 weeks ago, they saw a grandfather or grandmother or someone get murdered out on their grass. But they're expected to come to school and sit down and be still and be quiet when they've got all these thoughts going through their head and they can't even, let alone comprehend, they can't even fathom the fact of what's going to happen next. So I would say that if you feel that your child, or your young adult is able to understand and lean into some adult conversation, because the conversations that we're going to have, it's adult. This program is not designed for children. Okay.
Okay.
So if you are the type of parent that can have a conversation with your child afterwards and explain to them what was just said and why it was said and how it was said, then I would say bring them. But I'm not saying we're not intentionally inviting children, but if you have a
Right.
child, let's just say that's 13 or 14 years of age, please bring them. But if you have a child that's, let's just say 4 or 5 years old, and you're constantly having to say, be still, be quiet, sit down over here, and it's going to be addition to others who are coming to get them on, I would ask you not to bring those children. Wait to another time for another program.
Yeah. That's good. I'm glad that we had that discussion because, it's so important. And I think that's something that me, you, and D'Angelo, we can work on that because I do believe, based on just my program this past before the school year ended, I was in the school doing a program, and I promise you, there was not a child in my program that wasn't struggling with suicide. There was not a child in my program that was not struggling with depression. There was not a child in my program that wasn't struggling with anxiety. And we were able to touch on that. But it was because I did an assessment. And then when I talked to the principal and to the counselor, it was like, unfortunately, this is everywhere now. And part of that is grief because a lot of our kids lost during the pandemic and it has not properly been dealt with. D'Angelo, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, it's the things that our children have to deal with today is crazy. I'll just share a story. A partner of mine called me yesterday, and of course, we're located in Detroit, but this incident happened in Chicago. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my partner has a 5-year-old daughter, and he said that he was struggling because when he takes his daughter home this coming weekend, they have to go to a double funeral because
Wow.
his aunt and her aunt and the aunt's husband was killed coming out of a club because someone just went down Spring in Chicago shooting, and now they have to explain to this 5-year-old why her aunt and uncle won't be around anymore. And
Wow.
but now, the thing is, I totally agree. Wow, but this is happening so much more often and
Yes.
regular that some of our children they're not affected by it because the video games that they play show so much gore and death on a regular basis, and then it's happening out in the streets, on the news, in their neighborhood, in their family, so often that they're becoming numb to all of this violence, which is another reason why they're blocking their feelings. Their feelings are not being able to explore. And so you talk about communication, you talk about vulnerability, you talk about intimacy. That's almost zero when they go through these experiences without the process of grieving.
Yes. Well, you're
So
so right about that.
the trauma is much. It's like, wow. I can't. The data continues to increase on a negative level of how much trauma our students are experiencing on a regular basis.
Yes.
So the
Yes.
use of social work, my social workers and my counselors are very busy.
Yes. That is so true. Very busy. And that's one of the things that I noted and was so happy that I was able to be in the school. And we had real conversations around. So, you've heard me probably say a couple of times, thinking about what you're thinking about, right? And
Yes.
I did mention that oftentimes too, adults are not necessarily, thoughts are hitting our mind on a second. They're going through, they're fast, the thoughts are fast, and being able to slow down and thinking about what you're thinking about is so important. And then you hear yourself, and that I really do encourage when I'm in a school. I encourage the kids to think about what they're thinking about, and to listen to their thoughts, and they have to begin to write these things down, and they are amazed. And I do it with adults, and I have to mention too that they are amazed that they have so many negative thoughts going through their minds. So many negative thoughts going through their minds, and it really is influenced. It can be influenced by social media, it can be influenced by our families, it can be influenced by our environment, what things are going on in our environment. There's so many influences, and yet it's not really being unpacked. And so Portia or D'Angelo, how do we speak to this with permission to grieve, permission today, because you're going to speak a little bit more about that. How do we move into unpacking all of this? Because it is truly impacting us in every area of our lives. So how do we do that?
Our
Well,
students.
first of all, I would just suggest to go ahead.
What I was going to
Go
say
ahead,
is that.
D'Angelo.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we talk about how our students are not performing well academically. But if you ask me, I think we have some of the brightest and brilliant students in the world. The problem is that their brain is frozen by the trauma, and because they haven't grieved or don't have the opportunity to go through these processes to feel, to allow their body to process so that their mind can start to think and function accordingly. I think every school needs to make sure that social emotional learning is part of their learning process.
Yes. Bingo. Right there.
It needs to be part of the process every day. A couple of Portia's kids experienced Paul Robeson Academy, where we had meditation, which now is called mindfulness, every day. And that in itself would help students garner the strength they need and to believe in themselves after going through that mindfulness process.
Yes.
We don't have enough social emotional learning going on in all of our schools. And because of that, they see our students as not as bright. They are extremely bright, but because of the trauma they're experiencing, the brightness and the alertness and the academic strength doesn't come out.
Yes. So let me say this to Portia. Portia, tell us about Permission Today, and you have those. Did you say 7 areas?
Actually it's 6 areas. Permission
Okay,
to
6
grieve, we
areas.
want people to, yes, 6 components of permission today. So permission to grieve, we want people to have permission to grieve. And we're going to give you 2 resources to be able to do that. Permission to heal. What does that look like? Does it mean you need a counselor? Does it mean you need therapy? Does it mean do you need to have group support? There's different components of how one can grieve. Permission to live and laugh, and we're going to have a comedian that's there that's going to just knock our socks off and help us to laugh and bring that laughter into it. Then we're going to have permission to love again. We're going to have a panel discussion with panelists such as Dr. Rose Moten, Glenn McIntosh, Dr. Ken Coleman, Dr. Shannon, Dr. Michelle Lino, yourself is going to be one of them. Those are just a few of the individuals who are going to be giving us expert advice in terms of moving forward. And of course, Dr. Carla Mitchell, she's our resident workshop facilitator. She's going to do a workshop about, moving forward. We're going to have individuals about the fact that we're going to have a spoken word artist that are going to be there. We're going to have someone singing there because music is a part of healing. We're going to have different vendors that are going to be there talking about, what they can do. We're going to have ASA, CMOS and Friends. We're going to have an organization there from they're going to be with clothing, with other products, helping us to have the right mindset. I'm not going to give it all away because I want some things to be a surprise, but everybody is going to walk away feeling on a higher level of their healing journey that they came in the doors with. Everybody is going to brace with something unimaginable. Yes. It's going to be phenomenal.
Yes, and I know that to be true, Portia, because I came to one of them and I was truly blessed. Can you give the link? We have honestly ran out of time. I can't believe that we are out of time. This has been delicious, and thank you both for coming in and speaking. And can you tell the people where they can contact you? And we will. I do have it posted on my Facebook page, as well as my LinkedIn page, as well as my Instagram page. So it is posted. I made sure I reposted today. So can you give us where they can reach you and sign up?
Absolutely. So if you go to Eventbrite and just put in 3 words, permission to TO day, and that's in Detroit, it'll come right up and it will guide you through how you can get your tickets. 1 ticket for $25 and 2 for $40. And this will be a day that you will not want to miss out on, from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday, July the 13th.
Yes. Thank you so much.
We're going to guide you to let go and become free and have release. Yes.
Yes. Let go, have freedom, and have a release. Men, come and cry. Enjoy the process, the journey to become emotionally and mentally and spiritually healed. I love it. Thank you both for coming on our show today. Portia and D'Angelo, we have to have you both back. And you guys have been listening to Community Updates and Enlightened Hearts, live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter, and other top social media platforms. Please like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world. God bless you, and God bless your hearts.